Over lunch, I met an old friend which I haven't seen, for a long, long time, and he asked me what you are doing these days. I say, look, I am the ambassador of Israel to the United Nations in Geneva. Oi Gewalt, he says, and he added all my sympathy and condolences. So this is how I feel. But because of my position in Geneva, I have had a rather unique vantage point of the institution building process which established the new Human Rights Council. This process took place during uncountable formal, informal, and informal sessions in windowless conference rooms at the Palais des Nations in Geneva. I have seen the conception of the Council and lived its adoption. So you will indulge me as I give you a very brief history recall. Israel had a tortuous relationship with the defunct Commission of Human Rights. For many years, the Commission created a pattern in which issues related to Israel received preeminence, leaving insufficient time to discuss other issues of real importance and urgency in the rest of the world. For example, in the 7 years after the signing of the Oslo Accords and before the start of the Second Intifada in 2000, the Commission passed 36 resolutions condemning Israel. Between 2001 and 2005, another 27 were passed. All the while, notorious quote-unquote human rights defenders, such as Algeria and Libya, presided over the Commission, safe from scrutiny. Over time, the Commission entered the phase of what I call total absurdity. When talk of reform began to be whispered in the hallowed halls of the United Nations here in New York, Israel was cautiously optimistic. The Commission was universally acknowledged as a failed institution, and a new Human Rights Council, which was to be based on objectivity and non-selectivity, raised real hopes. From the Israeli perspective, a clean break with the past was exactly what was needed. Perhaps it would enable a new, productive, working relationship between Israel and the United Nations. Unfortunately, all did not go so planned. The General Assembly Resolution 60/251, which created the Council, did not, on the one hand, contain enough safeguards against human rights abusers and state sponsors of terrorism gaining membership. And on the other hand, the new geographical representation formula ensured that countries unfriendly to Israel would gain an automatic majority voting bloc. Insufficient thought was given to crucial issues such as the size of the Council or the number of the votes needed for member election and necessary quorum to call for special sessions. Consequently, along with the United States, Israel voted against this resolution. Nevertheless, 170 other countries voted in favor of it, and it thus became the foundation for building the new council. Wishing to be constructive, Israel decided to engage itself in the deliberations surrounding the creation of the council to try and positively influence the institution-building process in creating a non-selective body. However, at an early stage, I discovered that the real business was done within the regional groups from which Israel was deliberately excluded, while the numerous open-ended informal discussions were just a routine aimed at letting off steam to lend it the appearance of a transparent behavior. Things got off to an inauspicious start. During the new council's very first session in June 2006, a resolution was passed asking the council to undertake, and I quote, substantive consideration of a human rights violation and implications of the Israeli occupation of Palestine and other occupied Arab territories at its next session, and to incorporate this issue in following sessions, end quote. Thus, even before the new council could get its bearings, it was saddled with prejudiced and unbalanced considerations against Israel. The resolution lacked any support from European or Western-affiliated countries, who all voted against it. But buoyed by the strength of the Arab and Islamic states' automatic membership majority, the resolution passed in what would come to be seen as a notorious precedent to future action. A mere 5 days, only 5 days after the first council session ended in July 2006, Israel was the target of the first ever special session within the newly born council. Notably absent from this charade was any concern expressed for the rights of Israeli civilians who faced unceasing bombardment from rockets, or the mention of the kidnapped soldier Corporal Gilad Shalit. Let me pause briefly in my narrative to summarize the facts. The Council was barely 3 weeks old, and already 2 resolutions condemning Israel has been passed. This cycle will repeat itself throughout the remainder of 2006. By the end of the first 6 months of the Council's existence, there had been 2 more special sessions held to censor Israel, and to a total of 8 resolutions criticizing Israeli actions. Meanwhile, no condemnatory resolution has been adopted on, for example, Darfur, or Myanmar, Belarus, and other situations. It seems that history was repeating itself. However, negotiations to the core document of the Human Rights Council, known as the Institution Building Text, intensively began in January 2007. This document will be the basis from which the Council would operate for the next 5 years before being reviewed again. Israel, who had very negative experience with the old Commission, hoped to even the playing field and ensure that everyone was adjudged according to the same set of principles of impartiality, non-selectivity, and objectivity. So our task was to avoid the repetition of a special agenda item condemning us. Perhaps we were naive or too utopist, because the new Council had several new mechanisms it was supposed to implement, but the aspect of the institution building text that was of particular importance to Israel was the agenda. Israel was determined not to let the new improved Human Rights Council adopt an agenda which institutionalized all discriminatory tactics inherited from the Commission. It seems that we had at least one compelling argument on our side. The operative paragraphs of Resolution 60/251 mandated that the work of the Council will be guided by the principle, and a quote, of universality, impartiality, objectivity, and non-selectivity, end quote. So you can imagine the shock I received in early 2007 when the EU President told me during an additional Troika meeting that we had to prepare ourselves to live with a special item singling out Israel in the agenda. I was stunned to realize that mentally the Europeans had given up on this issue at a very early stage. Accordingly, we embarked on intense diplomacy to ensure the new councils didn't repeat the mistakes of the past. I engaged ambassadors from across the spectrum. We reinforced the message that we had an unparalleled opportunity to correct mistakes of the past, and to set the new foundation for a better protective system for human rights in the future. Letters stating our arguments were carefully crafted and were sent to all the ambassadors of the United States, the United Nations. Attachés from our mission sat through endless negotiations in order to follow and to determine whose intentions were honorable and who had more selfish design regarding the foundation of this new body. The path was